of prep hacks. Today we're going to be talking all things tracking, why it's important, what you should track, and why we take measurements and how it's useful for progress. If you had a coach, you would be sending them information every week in your weekly check-in. I check in with myself the same way that my lifestyle clients check in, and the same way that I would check in with my competitive clients as well. So I take my weight every day, I take my measurements, and I take them from the same places every time. When I'm looking to take measurements from clients, say you would measure halfway down from your shoulder to your elbow, or because I have freckles in very handy places, I use those as a point of reference to make sure that I'm always taking my measurements from the same place. So I have a progress tracker on my laptop right here, which I will then update every week, and it's the same thing that I do for my clients. Inputting this information can then allow me to see how I'm coming down from the previous weeks. I can also compare my information now to the data that I took from my last preps, which is very, very useful to kind of see if I've grown in certain places, if I'm holding body fat in certain places. So I use those two different spreadsheets to compare before and afters, which always helps to know. Just looking at pictures, just looking at scale weight sometimes isn't enough. So taking measurements, definitely recommend. Sometimes the scale weight will not follow suit, or sometimes it'll be up when actually your measurements are down, for your mindset and for knowing that you are still making progress. Even if the scale weight isn't reflecting that, then measurements are a really, really good thing to do. So I'll show you my tracker. Got weight, arm, chest, waist, hips, glutes and thigh, and I can see exactly where I'm dropping. I started prep at about 63.8, 64 kg, and I'm now down to 61.5, dropped 0.2 since last check-in. I did have a lower weigh-in yesterday of 61.4, but as we know, sometimes the weight will fluctuate. So we also have goal weight and actual weight, so I can input that in here now, and I've got obviously a predicted place that I'm going to be shooting for the end of prep. Weight will fluctuate, it's normal. You've got hormones at play, and you've got things like water retention from really heavy leg days. Then I'm putting in what my macros are here. I then will put in my daily steps, so averaging out across the week, how many training days I've had, how much cardio I've done. I also take biometric data, which is really important. So I've got my energy levels, my motivation, stress, sleep, water intake, hunger, adherence to plan, and then any notes that I want to make for the week as well. Biometric data is an easy way, when you do it on a scale of 1 to 10, to see how I'm feeling from previous weeks. And this will then help me to know if maybe I'm due like a refeed, dropping calories or pushing cardio or things like that. All that information adds up to then help me to make an informed decision about the action that I should then take for the week ahead. So this is all things that I do for my lifestyle clients as well. Talk about different things throughout the week which might have had an impact on the weight. So if you're not sleeping very well, if you're really highly stressed, if you've not been drinking much water, these things are then going to affect how you lose weight, and it's really important to take these things into consideration. This week, my measurements were down 4.2 centimeters, even though my weight was only down 0.2. So I can tell also from the pictures that I've taken comparing to previous weeks. Also just looking at things like how I'm looking in the gym, how I'm feeling in my clothes. These are all things that you can sort of take into consideration to see how you've been progressing. Also things to track, so I've got my step, average that out across the week. Like days I might have more PT clients, I end up doing over my target amount of steps, but then if you're bringing it down and averaging out across the week, that's a good way to go. If we do not track, we cannot hack. If we don't have data to base our decisions off, we're just purely going on how we feel, and sometimes how we feel can be very distracting almost. Checking out my measurements now as well, back to my previous season. Last season I was holding my fat in different areas. I'm actually carrying more fat on my stomach now than I was last season, but I think it's because my hormones are much better now than they were previous. So I lost my cycle. I mean, I barely got it back in the off season between my first season and my second season. I was on the implant for many years, didn't have periods, so it took a long while for my body to get back to its natural sort of equilibrium. And now I track my cycles, which is an important one to track as well, but I didn't even have them really. I literally started dieting last prep, and within about 6 weeks I just stopped having periods straight away. So one of my goals for this prep is to try and keep them as long as possible, because it's a really good indicator that my hormones are in check. Obviously you can get bloods done too to check your hormones, which is a really good idea if you are going into competition prep. So looking at this, my arm measurement now is actually smaller, and my chest was down a little bit too. I'm a centimetre up on my waist, and my hips are down massively compared to the last time I was this weight. They were about 83, now they're 76. My glutes have grown. They did have a little drop in the measurements this week, which is always sad to see that one go down. But my legs have grown too, which was one of my goals. So bigger legs this year, bigger glutes this year. I'm losing more weight from my upper body than I was previously, but last prep I came in from the waist, then the legs, then the upper. So it just goes to show every prep's different. You hold your fat in different places depending on where your hormones are at, depending on the prep as well, depending on how you age too. Getting older now, it's been a couple of years since I prepped, so it's probably another reason why my fat is holding differently. But it will come off, I just have to keep on at it. So you can never spot reduce, as we do know. You need to just keep going on your diet if you want that fat to budge from a certain area. Another thing that's really important to track is your lifts in the gym. If you're in off season, if you are prepping, obviously off season is where you're growing the muscle tissue. You need to make sure that you are progressing in those workouts, and a really good way to do that is to track your workouts. You can use like an app, you can use a paper logbook. I'm actually using now notes on my phone. I've just written down, see my workouts, and then I've got like an updated thing of the reps, the sets and things like that. One thing that we want is throughout prep is to try and keep as much muscle as possible. You do not want to be losing that muscle tissue, so to hold on to it, especially if you're natural like me, you need to be pushing hard in the gym, trying to maintain as much strength as possible. It will get harder as you diet down, like, I'm not gonna lie. By the end of prep, your strength is absolute poop, and it's one of the things that I do not like about prep. It does suck, but you just have to make sure that with every session you go in, you sort of assess how your strength is, and wherever it's at, you still make sure that you're pushing a good intensity. Obviously, as your strength does dip, don't be pushing to weights that you physically cannot lift. Always lift it with good form to make sure that you don't do yourself any injuries. That's the last thing you want on prep. And right at the very end, you're not concerned with pushing up the weight, because you're not going to be growing any new muscle tissue at that point. You just want to try and keep the muscle that you've already built and worked so hard for. So with that, I'm going to be adding in a workout to this vlog, and it's got to be legs. First one of the series with a workout in, we've got to have some legs in it. So today, Monday, it's glutes and hams day. We've got some lying leg curls in there, some adductors, lots of kickbacks, sumo deadlifts, which is one of my favourite ones at the moment. Hip thrust machine, of course. Basically, lots of stuff for glutes in there, a little bit of hammies, and a lovely pump right at the very end. So very excited for that workout. Previous numbers that I did, I'm going to try and match those or beat them if I can. When my numbers start dropping, it's a good indicator that maybe I'm due like a refeed, due some extra rest days if my motivation is dipping. We'll go through refeeds on another video. So yeah, always excited to train legs on a Monday. It's my check-in day with clients. This week we are doing check-in calls, so I've got a call in about an hour with one of my clients. Get them to fill in a couple of different forms on the app that we use. We then do check-in feedback each week. I do it via voice note, and then first week of the month I will do a call with them, get a bit of face-to-face time. It's nice as an online coach to have that interaction, to make sure that we're catching up properly, to see their faces and see how they're getting on. So we've got that this week. Then this afternoon I will go and train legs before I have a couple of evening PT clients. So very, very busy at the moment. I'm probably going to be limiting my PT, but if you do want to get involved, please let me know on Instagram or drop me a message on here or comment below. Cool, right, I'm going to crack on with check-ins. Then I will see you on legs, and we are going to prophecy today. Had lots of improvements since I last filmed in there, so the glute stuff is unreal, so I'm excited to show you that. See you later. Now it's the time to realign, reconnecting my foundation, reunite. Oh, I'm digging, got my feet on